Have you ever seen a super...
Alam mo na, pero ano yung relationship to? Tagalog ba?
Hindi mo Tagalog.
Lang. That's fine.
At tama rin.
Have you ever seen a supermarket this bizarre? The owner's only goal seems to be driving it into the ground. Need to charge your phone? You'll have to charge the door first just to get in. This massive market doesn't have a single shopping cart. They've all
Wala na sang manager ba nga mabangkot na kay may kaaway niya away ang CEO sang tagiya sa market. Pero bali noon. Mas wala lang pa noon. Damo mo palit sa iya tindahan.
The more insane this place gets, the more customers it attracts. Located in a bustling Korean business district, Tiananmen Mart belongs to the Demon Group. It's their unofficial dumping ground. Anyone who messes up at Demon gets sent here. Consider it corporate exile. Getting transferred to Tiananmen is basically a not-so-subtle hit to quit. Even the mayoral candidate vowed to build a fancy resort complex. Driving that property down is burying Tiananmen Mart for this. Meanwhile, at Dana HQ, the top brass is meeting, and the chairman is all about innovation and disruptive thinking. He's got a new project he's really excited about, a bright red box he unveils with dramatic flair. What's inside? Everyone leans in, eager to see the latest groundbreaking invention. Car wax, but not just any car wax. This stuff makes your car grow hair. Yes, you heard that right. Hair. This brilliant and bonkers idea reminds everyone of the recent rumors about the chairman's alleged memory loss. People exchange uneasy glances and whisper, but no one dares to challenge the boss. The CFO, ever the sycophant, claps enthusiastically, praising the chairman's unwavering vision. Even as he disagrees with the CFO's. Round nosing was legendary. Faced with this awkward situation, everyone else except for one guy, Bob, the director at the company, couldn't take it anymore. He spoke up, calling the product ridiculous. Even though it was the chairman's idea, Bok Dong bluntly stated that launching this hairy car wax could bankrupt the company. Seeing the chairman's face darken, Bok Dong braced himself. He expected fury, the consequences of the challenge. But instead, the chairman praised him. Turns out, it was all a test. The chairman, aware of the rumors about his supposed memory loss, wanted to see if he would stand up and stop this disastrous project. Bok Dong, the lone voice of reason, was about to have his life changed forever. The chairman promoted him as executive vice president, launching him to the peak of his career. Everyone else in the room, now realizing they'd just blindly followed a crazy idea, could only watch in stunned silence. The chairman, clearly impressed with Bok Dong's courage, beamed. Bok Dong, completely caught off guard, grinned like a fool, happiness radiating from him. But just as he was basking in this unexpected triumph, another piece of news arrived, sending him plummeting from the heights of joy straight into the depths of despair. Suddenly, the secretary burst in with an urgent report. Their rival company just launched, Harry Car Wax, and it's flying off the shelves. It's front-page news, with 16 international companies clamoring for distribution deals. The rival's market value is already eclipsed. Harry Car Wax is a global phenomenon. The room temperature plummets below freezing. Even Bok Dong's triumphant smile freezes on his face. Moments later, the chairman summons him. His expression grim. Bok Dong is told he's no longer needed at headquarters. He's being transferred to Tiananmen Mart, from corporate hero to retail exile in the blink of an eye. Crushed, Bok Dong tearfully accepts his fate. Meanwhile, in a modest apartment, a man sleeps soundly on the floor, his walls plastered with words. This is Seo Gu, 29, a brilliant Seoul University graduate. Top of his class's entire life, he dedicated himself to studying.
Ano din sa tanong pa, kaya niyo matalino niya bossing base ka.
Today, however, is
Gusto
Seal
lang
Goo's
niya
lucky day.
pabagsakan niya.
He's landed a manager position at Gianrima Mart, a subsidiary of the region's biggest corporation. He feels like he's hit the jackpot. The next morning, brimming with confidence, he arrives at the store. What he finds is unsettling. Employees are asleep on the job or glued to their phones. Shopping carts are mysteriously missing. Rotten vegetables stink up the produce section. Shelves are a chaotic mess. Flies swarm the meat counter. This isn't a supermarket, it's a disaster zone. Seal Gu, attempting to swat a fly, slips on a rotten banana peel and lands flat on his face. Just then, Bok Dong, the newly appointed store manager, approaches, informing him they have a meeting in 10 minutes. Seal Gu stares after him, dumbfounded. He's working under the Bok Dong, the legendary Dima executive. He's convinced he's about to witness a corporate miracle, help rebuild
Tari,
Seal Gu
Domingo linaw na.
and become a legend himself. Heart pounding. Seal Gu enters Bok Dong's office.
Paspasan ta naman.
Eager to introduce himself. Bok Dong, however, is in no mood for pleasantries. After reviewing the
Naslaw
business
ka agad,
financials,
pigado.
he declares they need a complete overhaul before they can even think about reopening. So, on day 2, they hold a hiring fair. 2 interesting candidates show up, both desperate for work and lacking any real qualifications. They launch into a competition of who's had it worse. Curly Hair goes first, declaring himself human garbage. Glasses chimes in, tearfully claiming he's the real trash. They devolve into a sobbing argument over who qualifies as the superior form of refuse. Mid-sob fest, the door explodes inward. A local gangster storms in, demanding compensation. He bought canned goods from the store and broke out in a rash. He's convinced it's their fault and wants his money back.
Tuyok mo lang bagyo.
Seal Gu, bewildered, tries to explain
Huwag
that the rash
managdiretso.
isn't their fault. He offers a refund just to get rid of it. But the gangster, sensing
Para pa
weakness,
may
grabs a
pang
chair
kwan,
and prepares
balot.
for a brawl. Bok Dong,
Kulba sila
calmly
kung
observing the chaos,
matapos yung bagyo,
cracks
balot
on
na
one side.
natamos.
He announces he's hiring all 3 of them. Seal Gu is flabbergasted. What is happening? Is this real life? As if things weren't weird enough, a member of the Bibaya tribe, who also happens to be their chief, arrives with a young girl. He demands jobs for his people, or they'll starve. Bok Dong, ever accommodating, hires the entire tribe.
Huwag
Seal Gu,
malipresyor.
thoroughly
Sunod,
confused,
kuwan lang.
confronts Bok Dong.
Amihan
Hiring
lang.
unqualified people
Amihan.
like this is unfair. Bok Dong, sensing Seal Gu's unease, reminds him that he's not just any employee.
Magkakaroon tayo
He's
pagtanaw
the
pa, no?
manager. He challenges Seal Gu to step up and rewrite the store's reopening plan. Inspired by Bok Dong's words, Seal Gu feels a surge of purpose. He is the manager. He can do this. Meanwhile, the Bibaya chief returns to his people, sharing the good news in their native tongue. After decades of wandering in Korea, they finally have a place to belong. They erupt in a joyous tribal dance, a strangely heartwarming sight. The next morning, Seal Gu, energized and ready to take charge, heads to work. Just then, a luxury car pulls up beside him. The CFO flags Seal Gu down and invites him for a ride.
Hello
The
po.
car takes him to a secluded spot. The CFO reveals he knows Seal
Pangalan si
Gu
Bibi,
craves
tanaw
a
ka din.
position at corporate HQ. He
Ako niya,
offers a
salami
deal,
yan.
complete
Ano
a
sa bag?
simple task, and Seal Gu will become a team leader under him. The task? Spy on Bok Dong. Document his every move, right down to his bathroom breaks. Everything must be reported back to the CFO. Seal Gu is taken aback. This is weird, but a promotion is a promotion, right? He agrees. The CFO's motive?
Antisik.
He and Bok Dong
Ribar.
are the chairman's top contenders. With Bok Dong exiled to the supermarket, the CFO sees his path to vice president clear. He knows the ambitious Bok Dong won't stay put, so he needs
Ayos,
someone to keep
pamana
tabs
siya.
on. Seal Gu, the eager manager,
Sige,
seems like
tawag
the
na sa tata
perfect
sa
pawn.
iya.
But the
Kasi
CFO has
makontak.
underestimated sweet, innocent Seal Gu. Just as the CFO thinks he's won, Seal Gu asks a killer question. Should he tell Bok Dong about this arrangement? The CFO stares at his supposed asset, the look of dawning horror on his face. Did he choose the wrong guy? Back at the supermarket, Seal Gu
kailinaw
finds
gapon
yet
sa ilan
another
to.
scene that makes him question reality.
Inong, kaya mo
The
ito gapon kay...
tribe members are lined up at the entrance.
Di ko
each
man ito
holding
naman
a small
nagbalot.
contraption. A female customer explains. Insert a coin, and they become human shopping carts, following shoppers around the store. Seal Gu, the smart, capable manager, feels a pang of inadequacy. His brain simply can't compete with this level of innovation. Then, to his astonishment, the Bibaya tribe breaks into a spontaneous, mesmerizing dance right there in the supermarket aisle.
Namin na
The infectious music and rhythmic movements are irresistible. Seal Gu finds himself swaying along. He's not sure what's real anymore. Just when he thinks the gangster hasn't shown up for work, Glasses informs him that the gangster is working in customer service, in logistics. A furious customer storms in with a defective product. Seal Gu follows, expecting to witness a customer service meltdown. Instead, he opens the door to a bizarre tableau. The customer, who moments before was yelling,
Di lang
is now
ulan-ulan,
kneeling
Dre,
on
ha?
the floor,
Wala bigo
completely
go,
cowed by the gangster's
Tubig
intimidating
to
presence.
sa agwa.
The
Grabe.
customer service center has been transformed into a regal throne room, with the gangster presiding from a central, elevated position, dressed in elaborate robes. It looks more like a court of law than customer service. The gangster, who yesterday was all threats and bluster, now commands respect with a few quiet words,
Steady ko
sending
lang.
the disgruntled customer scurrying away, thoroughly intimidated. Siok Gu is utterly baffled. What is even happening? Glasses explains that it's all the manager's doing. Bak Dong believes in a unique approach to customer service. Their philosophy isn't: the customer is always right, but rather, the employee is always right, hence the royal attire. On opening day, Siok Gu is caught in a whirlwind of bizarre activity. He diligently compiles his report and sends it off to the CFO. The CFO, eager for dirt on Bak Dong, rips open the report, only to find it completely incomprehensible. References to King Bak Dong and A. Supermarket Kingdom leave him utterly confused. Intrigued, he decides to investigate in person. Upon arriving at the store, he's immediately confronted by the human shopping cart brigade. He pushes his way through, taking in the surreal scene, and realizes he's been played. He grabs Siok Gu by the collar, ready to unleash his fury. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls his name. The CFO turns to see a giant sunflower. Looking closer, he recognizes Bak Dong. His mind reels. What is going on? He demands an explanation. Bak Dong, with no attempt at subtlety, reveals his plan to destroy the Demon Group. His first step? A union election. Only the best employee will be chosen as a representative.
Baho nung pataw makinang aladaan. Di ko rodo kay nagkumtas ko sa nga akong last na panagatay.
All night sewing a giant banner on pure
Gupa
gold.
ng spring.
And
Buhay
as if
ng
that
spring
wasn't
ba?
enough, he commissions a solid gold championship
Sige na
belt
ako
for
na
union
jazz.
representative.
Nagumpahin
He's
noon.
effectively draining the company's coffers.
Ibutan ko na
On the
guma.
side of fierce competition among the
Sadya
employees.
gina. Mualop,
All part of
mapatay,
the plan
mualop,
to take down the
mapatay.
Demon. Unsurprisingly, the employees go wild. The gangster and the Bibaya chief, both eager for power, decide to settle things the old-fashioned way, with their fists. Thus begins the Cheonju Mart Union President competition. First up is the gangster, the former neighbor.
Palitan ko stainless nga numero 20. Daw
He's the
gamay.
undisputed pretty boy of the supermarket arena. Next up,
Mawawala sige ako sa akong
the
spring nga gamit karon ba?
solemnly carry a coffin onto the makeshift arena. The Bibaya chief, aka the Bibaya giant, emerges, clad in ceremonial garb, looking like he's ready to send the gangster to an early grave.
Kung sino mo
Siok Gu, watching from the sidelines, is speechless. How did a normal supermarket turn into a fighting ring? Meanwhile, Bak Dong wears a sinister grin. His plan is working. After some pre-fight trash talk, the match begins. The gangster strikes first with his signature carrot pole attack. He thinks he's won, but the chief barely flinches. The Bibaya chief retaliates with a swift, open-handed strike, sending the gangster sprawling. The two grapple, their moves as unpredictable as they are entertaining. Finally, the gangster unleashes his ultimate move. White Phoenix takes flight. Just as he's about to strike, another Bibaya tribesman, hidden in the shadows, trips him. The chief seizes the opportunity, delivering a devastating nutcracker punch, knocking the gangster out cold. The crowd gasps.
Living for the vibe, but not for the LT. Try new President Point now.
Lalo mo na ako. Pinto mo lang kaya na.
Alam mo yan, kung mo ako makita nitong translated version, naramay ko sa Netflix.
Find new President Point now.
Bak Dong declares the Bibaya chief the winner and the new union president. The gangster, however, is not pleased. He demands a rematch, vowing revenge. To everyone's surprise, the chief apologizes. He admits the victory wasn't entirely fair, but he needed to win to support his family. He offers the gangster a small gift as compensation, a tiny Bibaya horn. The gangster stares at the horn, then at his injuries, wondering if the chief's apology was entirely sincere. As union president, the Bibaya chief throws himself into his work. He expertly fillets a fish with lightning-fast knife skills, transforming it into a beautiful plate of sushi. Housewives go wild, scrambling to buy his creations. Meanwhile, the other Bibaya tribesmen are busy selling mountain ginseng, claiming it gives men the chief's strength and vitality. Customers can't get enough. The supermarket, under the Bibaya tribe's influence, is thriving. Sales are booming. Siok Gu attributes it all to Bak Dong's brilliant marketing strategy. He's in awe of Bak Dong's business acumen. Bak Dong, however, is frustrated. He's not ruining the supermarket. He's making it more successful. Seeing the supermarket bustling with customers, Bak Dong decides to change tactics. If customers can't get in, the supermarket will surely fail. He devises two new entrance strategies and presents them to Siok Gu. Option 1, the revolving door of doom. As soon as a customer enters, the door locks. They have to spin a certain number of times to generate enough power to unlock it. Sealed Goo has an immediate headache. Customers are here to shop, not exercise. Who's going to put up with this? Option 2 is even more terrifying. The vertical sensor door. It slams shut when it senses a customer approaching. Walk too slowly, and you risk losing your head. Sealed Goo is baffled. Why mess with the winning formula? The supermarket is finally doing well. But Bogdan won't be swayed. He flips a coin to decide. Meanwhile, at HQ, the CFO is shocked by the supermarket's sudden resurgence. He decides to send in a top-tier spy. He chooses Miran, the star of the assistant department, fluent in 8 languages. Miran, dreaming of a glamorous assignment in Paris, London, or Tokyo, is crushed when she's told she's going to the local supermarket. Dejected, she arrives at Cheonrima Mart just as the new revolving door is installed. She becomes the unwitting test subject. The door locks behind her, refusing to budge. After a moment of panic, she realizes it's a power-generating contraption. She pushes with all her might, spinning until the door finally unlocks. She stumbles out, exhausted, only to be caught by Siak Gu. Later, Miran reports to Bogdan, who has heard of her stellar reputation at HQ. He praises her performance, catching her off guard. Just as she's basking in the unexpected compliment, he asks point-blank if she's the CFO's spy. Caught red-handed, Miran confesses, blurting out her entire mission. Bogdan, surprisingly, isn't angry. He simply advises her to focus on her work. Leaving his office, Miran has a newfound respect for Bogdan. Maybe he's not so bad after all. Unfazed by the supermarket's newfound success, Bogdan decides to tackle another area, unused corners. He converts them into free arcades. It's a childhood dream come true. He was too poor to play arcade games as a kid. Seok Gu is perplexed. This seems like a waste of resources, but Bogdan is unstoppable. While overseeing the arcade setup, Seok Gu is drawn to a dance machine. He can't resist. He launches into an impromptu, highly skilled dance performance, showcasing his impressive moves to the bewildered staff. He even takes off his shirt and shoes, completely losing himself in the rhythm. Meanwhile, Miran discovers an abandoned office. Despite her high heels and skirt, she diligently cleans the entire space, transforming it into a spotless haven. The staff, witnessing Miran's dedication, realize she's not there to spy on them. They embrace each other, thrilled to finally have a proper office. The next day, a young girl appears in the supermarket. The gangster, initially aggressive, approaches her, only to burst into tears. Seok Gu arrives to find the gangster sobbing uncontrollably like a child. He's completely confused. Bogdan enters to find the entire staff in tears, with the little girl standing calmly amidst the chaos. He asks Seok Gu what's going on, but Seok Gu can only sob in response. The girl asks Bogdan if he's the owner. He confirms, and she asks if her dad can have a job. She shows him a photo of her deceased father. Bogdan is taken aback. He takes the girl to his office and hears her heartbreaking story. Her father dedicated his life to passing the bar exam, but never succeeded. He was eventually disqualified and forced to apply for regular jobs, facing constant rejection. Her mother, unable to cope with their poverty, left him. Her father continued his desperate job search until he was tragically killed in a car accident just a week ago. At the funeral, the girl overheard neighbors gossiping about her father's unemployment, labeling him a failure. She didn't want him to be remembered that way. She wanted him to have a job, even in death, so she brought his resume to Bogdan. Bogdan, always looking for ways to spend the company's money, agreed to hire the deceased father. Learning the girl was now an orphan, he hired her too. The staff, witnessing this act of kindness, were deeply moved. Only Seok Gu remained confused. Inspired by the girl's situation, Bogdan launched another project, the library, with the girl as the librarian. He allowed her to study while working, even assigning Seok Gu to tutor her for an hour each day. He insisted on paying her a full adult salary, plus her father's salary, effectively using company funds for charity. Seok Gu was stunned. First, child labor, now employing the deceased? Bogdan's business practices were questionable, but his compassion was undeniable. Despite his reservations, Seok Gu found himself tutoring the girl, patiently helping her with her homework. Mothers shopping in the supermarket were touched by this heartwarming scene. The girl, seizing the opportunity, began recommending related books, boosting sales. Seok Gu realized that even this seemingly absurd act was generating revenue. Bok Dong, despite his unorthodox methods, was a business genius. To try and regain some semblance of normalcy, Seok Gu decided on a new initiative. Everyone gets a Western name. It would add a touch of class, making the supermarket feel more international. The next day, he proudly introduced himself as Peter. He then went around checking on everyone else's names, only to discover they'd completely missed the point. Lasses in curly hair chose ridiculously local nicknames. Even Myran, the sophisticated HQ employee, picked a traditional Korean name. Seok Gu despaired. The Babaya tribe, though not Korean, chose names of Korean pop stars, effectively becoming a K-pop cover group. He even encountered a mini IU. Seok Gu was reaching his limit, but these were relatively normal compared to what he saw next. A flash of gold caught his eye. It was a man in Middle Eastern attire. Intrigued, Seok Gu approached. The man turned, and Seok Gu gasped. It was Bok Dong. Apparently, Bok Dong thought the Western names idea was good, but regular English names were too boring. If they were going international, they were going all the way. Dressed as a Middle Eastern monarch, Bok Dong began his daily inspection. He encountered a wealthy Middle Eastern investor, shopping for milk. The two locked eyes, a spark igniting between them. The music swelled, and they broke into a spontaneous, synchronized dance, captivating everyone around them. Their intense gazes and surprisingly coordinated moves created an unforgettable spectacle. A bromance was born. The investor felt
Maulan,
divinely
hapon,
guided to
sa
meet
ating
Bok
tanan.
Dong in this unlikely
Doon na
setting.
tayo. Dito sa
He'd
loob
been
na
in
tayo
town
gumawa.
discussing a potential investment in the region's largest supermarket. This encounter felt like fate. After their impromptu dance-off, the investor, swept away by the moment, invested a whopping $10 billion in Bok Dong's supermarket. Bok Dong was dumbfounded. He was trying to ruin the supermarket, not turn it into a gold mine. The news of the massive investment made headlines. The Dana vice president and CFO, seething with jealousy, paid a visit to the supermarket, intending to confront Bok Dong. Bok Dong, however, remained utterly unconcerned. His goal was to destroy Dana, and he wasn't afraid of anyone. He greeted them with his feet up on his desk, a picture of nonchalant defiance. He then pulled out a pen and aimed it menacingly at them. Terrified, they fled. In the parking garage, the vice president discovered his car had been redecorated by the Babaya tribe. He collapsed in defeat. With the executives gone, a new crisis emerged. A horde of children descended upon the supermarket. Bok Dong's free arcade had turned the store into a kid's paradise, a chaotic playground. A group of students were smoking in the bathroom. Kids were running wild, disrupting everything. Someone stole the Babaya chief's gold belt. Others were swarming the gangster. Bok Dong, finally reaching his breaking point, stormed off to his office, retrieving a secret weapon from his closet. Seok Gu, fearing Bok Dong was about to unleash his wrath on the children, tried to intervene. But Bok Dong emerged, with a magical flute passed down from his ancestors. Accompanied by the flute's enchanting melody, the children, as if hypnotized, followed Bok Dong out of the store and into the neighboring supermarket. He then sprinted back to Cheonrima Mart, leaving the bewildered children behind. The staff stared in awe. Bok Dong, with a flourish, ripped down the arcade sign. With the flashing lights gone, peace returned to the supermarket. The next day, Bok Dong was driving to work when a man suddenly jumped in front of his car. Bok Dong slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. He angrily confronted the man, assuming he was causing trouble. The man explained he was a jelly supplier. His business was failing after Mart stopped carrying his product. His factory was on the brink of bankruptcy, and he was desperate. Bok Dong, after sampling the jelly and finding it delicious, had an epiphany. He had $10 billion burning a hole in his pocket, and a supermarket to bankrupt. He offered the man a deal. Cheonrima Mart would buy his jelly, but at triple the price. The man was stunned. He'd met generous CEOs, but this was unprecedented. He followed Bok Dong back to the supermarket, setting up a jelly stall. Seok Gu watched, bewildered. When he learned about the tripled price, he was speechless. This was financial suicide. They'd lose money on every sale, but Bok Dong was determined to make it work. The supplier, emboldened by Bok Dong's unwavering faith, was reinvigorated. He proudly displayed his family's generations' old jelly-making certificate. It turned out he was a descendant of a royal chef. Customers, Intrigued by the high price and the impressive credentials, flocked to the stall. Elders, after tasting the jelly, were hooked. It was the taste of home, a traditional recipe passed down through generations. The high price didn't deter them. They bought it by the bucket load. The jelly became an overnight sensation. The factory went into overdrive, working 24/7 to meet the demand. The jelly craze even caught the attention of international buyers. Impressed with the jelly's quality, the international buyers placed large orders. The supplier, grateful for Bok Dong's generosity, refused to sell his jelly anywhere else, remaining loyal to Chiangrima Mart. Bok Dong's selfless act of saving a failing business became a media sensation. He was interviewed by newspapers and TV stations, receiving numerous awards. But Bok Dong's smile was gone. He was failing at failing. Seeing the supermarket's profits soar, he ordered his staff to give away the store's finest bottled water to anyone buying jelly, hoping to drain the supermarket's funds. Meanwhile, the CFO, watching the news, no longer believed Bok Dong was trying to sabotage the supermarket. He suspected Bok Dong was aiming for expansion. He couldn't let that happen. At the same time, the vice president was summoned by the chairman and berated for his laziness. The chairman, in a fit of rage, nearly assaulted him. The vice president fled, shoeless, to the parking garage to mournfully pet his defaced car. The CFO contacted Siak Gu, and they left the supermarket together. Myran, now fiercely loyal to Bok Dong, secretly followed them, suspecting a conspiracy. The CFO offered Siak Gu a transfer to HQ. The condition? Betray Bok Dong. A major event was coming that could make or break the supermarket. The CFO wanted Siak Gu to blame everything on Bok Dong. Myran, eavesdropping, assumed the worst. She prepared to warn Bok Dong. But just as she was about to leave, she heard Siak Gu misunderstand the CFO's offer. He thought the CFO wanted him to actively sabotage Bok Dong. Siak Gu refused. He longed for a position at HQ, but he'd grown to respect Bok Dong. He didn't always understand Bok Dong's methods, but the staff was happy, and the supermarket felt like a family. Myran, relieved, slipped away. However, after she left, Siak Gu regretted his hasty refusal. He didn't want to betray Bok Dong or the CFO. He was trapped. So, Siak Gu decided to work for both sides. The CFO was speechless. This brilliant graduate seemed to have completely missed the point. Meanwhile,
need a B-Day gift? Here's one. And another. And another. M&M's.
Meanwhile, Kim, the mayoral candidate, was worried about negative publicity surrounding his development project. He saw Bok Dong and the supermarket as a way to deflect attention. He planned a surprise hygiene inspection, hoping to find violations and shift the focus onto the supermarket's supposed shortcomings. When Siak Gu learned about the impending inspection, he knew things were serious. Bok Dong was out, so Siak Gu had to handle it himself. He greeted Kim by performing a handstand, a gesture of respect in Korea. Everyone applauded Siak Gu's politeness. Even Kim seemed impressed. Siak Gu then launched into a series of over-the-top compliments, so exaggerated that onlookers began to criticize Kim. They assumed Siak Gu's blatant flattery was a sign that Kim was incompetent. Embarrassed, Kim asked for water. Siak Gu, eager to please, brought him a glass, with a piece of cabbage floating in it. He explained that by sucking on the cabbage while drinking, Kim wouldn't choke. Everyone except Siak Gu interpreted this as a satirical jab at Kim. The cabbage, resembling a large bill, was seen as a symbol of corruption. They applauded Siak Gu's bravery. The next day, news of Kim's inspection and Siak Gu's cabbage stunt went viral. The supermarket's popularity continued to rise. Bok Dong, increasingly desperate, racked his brain for new ways to sabotage the store. Siak Gu suggested a buy one get one free promotion to capitalize on the increased foot traffic. Bok Dong, terrified of further success, dismissed the idea as too conventional. However, Siak Gu's suggestion sparked a new, even more destructive idea in Bok Dong's mind. The supermarket was located in a prime, high-traffic area. 4 major supermarkets were competing in the area. To survive, they needed to stand out. Bok Dong's plan? Promote the other supermarkets, driving customers away from Chiangrima Mart.
Bakal.
He printed 100,000 flyers advertising his competitors, hiring over 100 temporary workers to distribute them. He was solving unemployment and sabotaging his own business. A genius, he thought. Siak Gu was horrified. The flyers even stated that shopping at Chiangrima Mart was expensive. In a city of 460,000, Bok Dong was distributing over 100,000 flyers promoting the competition. Siak Gu couldn't fathom his logic. Every attempt to ruin the supermarket seemed to have the opposite effect. While having lunch, Bok Dong and Siak Gu were approached by the owners of the other supermarkets. Impressed by Bok Dong's marketing genius, they asked for advice on their flyers. Bok Dong, ever helpful, grabbed a pen and scribbled on their flyers. On one, he wrote, "The reason we're selling at half the profit is because of our good mood." On another, he added, "I will treat you well with your money." The other supermarket owners were stunned. One, nearly apoplectic, accused Bok Dong of mockery. Bok Dong protested, claiming this was his supermarket's motto, direct and honest. The owner scoffed, declaring that if Bok Dong's flyers actually said that, he would dance in fishnet stockings in front of the store. Seok Gu gasped, while Bok Dong simply stared. Later, a sympathetic Seok Gu showed the man Chian Rimamart's flyer. The man's eyes bulged.
Masaya
As they
daw
left,
nagamit ang
Seok Gu
fishnet
expressed
pa.
concern
Yung
for the
mga,
man's
ay, diba,
dignity, but the owner was a man of his word.
net ng
He donned red underwear and fishnet stockings,
Diba?
performing a mortifying dance in front of his store. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt his business. With Bok Dong constantly stirring up chaos, Seok Gu was stressed. Every day, he feared what new absurdity Bok Dong would unleash. One day, Seok Gu found Bok Dong working the cash register. Moments later, Bok Dong seemed struck by inspiration, abandoning his post and rushing back to his office. Seok Gu felt a sense of foreboding. The next day, a heated ondol, a traditional Korean underfloor heating system, appeared in the supermarket, with Bok Dong lounging on top, fanning himself with a bamboo fan. Seok Gu, almost used to this by now, approached cautiously, stifling a laugh. He asked Bok Dong what in the world was going on. Bok Dong, looking at the exasperated Seok Gu, calmly explained that it was his new checkout counter design. He realized how tiring it was to stand all day, so he created a heated relaxation station for his cashiers. After all, in this supermarket, the employees, not the customers, were kings. He wanted them to feel the warmth of family during their shifts. His words touched the hearts of the employees, who looked at him with newfound adoration. Seok Gu, however, remained unconvinced. Bok Dong, ignoring him, poured himself a cup of tea and continued to relax. The supermarket's unusual work culture attracted attention. 4 strangers arrived, the Phoenix Corporation's F4. There was Rising Dragon of Electronics,
F4.
a flamboyant playboy, somersault of chemicals, a brooding, mysterious type, god of tools, a smooth operator with his lighting crew, in white steel, a handsome innocent. Their arrival caused a stir. The staff, assuming they were troublemakers, confronted them, escorting them to Bok Dong's office. The F4 explained they were impressed by Bok Dong's treatment of his employees. Word had spread about his family-like atmosphere, his disregard for qualifications and background, and his efforts to make his employees comfortable. They'd come to announce that their workers would now exclusively shop at Chianring Mart. Bok Dong, overjoyed, thanked the F4 profusely, and then encouraged them to shop at his competitor stores instead. The F4 were adamant, thanks to their patronage in Bok Dong's unconventional marketing. The supermarket sales shattered all previous records. Bok Dong was beside himself. Was he cursed? Every attempt to sabotage the store only made it more successful. Meanwhile, Seok Gu, beaming, reviewed the sales figures. He decided to capitalize on the supermarket's popularity with daily staff dance performances for the customers. Despite the short rehearsal time, the performances were a hit. But Bok Dong
Bata
didn't
sila nga,
have too much
kuhan,
fun. Just as everyone was celebrating, he appeared in white tights, grabbed a pole, and launched into a shockingly suggestive floor dance. He got a little too into it, his energetic, almost aggressive style surprisingly appealing to the customers. Instead of being repulsed, they were entertained, even throwing money at him. Bok Dong's fiery performance was another unexpected success. Afterward, a perplexed Seok Gu confronted Bok Dong. He needed to understand Bok Dong's motivations. He knew executives were often unhappy about being transferred to the supermarket, but Bok Dong's actions were baffling. Sales were skyrocketing, and he was pulled dancing for tips. Seok Gu had initially wanted to drive customers away. Bok Dong, instead of answering, advised Seok Gu to trust his instincts and not be swayed by others. The supermarket's growing fame attracted a reporter. She interviewed locals, who praised Chianring Mart. Arriving at the store, she found a line of people waiting outside. Bok Dong's power-generating revolving door had become a popular exercise spot. Inside, she was greeted by the Bibaya human shopping carts, who not only carried groceries, but also offered free shopping advice. The employees are kings. Motto was evident in the royal costume and the retirement needle.
Ano man itong babae nga nagpaikot-ikot?
The reporter, wanting a dramatic story,
nag-testing mo lang
decided
ito.
to fabricate a narrative
Nag-exercise sila.
about Bok Dong, a high-flying
Kahit
executive.
dapat ma-generate nila ito ba ang power dito sa kwentahan ba para makashoot sila. Akala lang yan kaya nga mo
He
bankrupt
even
ang iya
resorted to eating tree bark at the subway
business
station.
kung iya
He was at
nagamitan.
his
Pero
wits'
hindi
end.
mo
He
panahon
had
ng
destroyed the
katadra.
supermarket. The reporter, oblivious to his inner turmoil, continued her enthusiastic commentary. Bok Dong ordered her out. Seok Gu, however, saw a publicity opportunity. He insisted on doing the interview, claiming he could handle Korea's toughest questions, even drinking fish sauce for 3 days straight. Seeing Seok-goo's eagerness, Bok Dong decided to drop a bombshell on live TV. He announced a groundbreaking plan that would shock Dama's board and executives, sending shareholders into a panic. He was done being subtle. The next day, Bok Dong's interview made headlines, but the reporters misinterpreted his message. They saw him as a business savant, hinting at a massive stock surge. Dama's stock price skyrocketed. Bok Dong was devastated. This wasn't what he wanted at all. Meanwhile, the chairman and other executives saw the news. The chairman, who had been closely monitoring Bok Dong's antics, decided it was time for him to return. He'd always valued Bok Dong's abilities and offered him his old job back. Bok Dong refused. He saw through the chairman's ploy. The chairman was using him, trying to avoid responsibility for the mess created by the vice president and CFO. Bok Dong's resentment ran deep. He wasn't just angry about being exiled. He'd spent years cleaning up the chairman's messes, taking the fall for failed projects. He'd even covered for the chairman when he'd unjustly fired over 1,000 employees, including Bok Dong's best friend, Mr. Kim. One mistake and Bok Dong was banished to Chamber Remark. The chairman, hearing Bok Dong's grievances, decided to give the vice president one last chance. He asked him what he truly wanted to do. The vice president confessed his dream of opening a Teokbokki, spicy rice cakes, restaurant. In childhood, the vice president had harbored a secret passion for Teokbokki, suppressed only by his grandfather's disapproval. The chairman, though skeptical, was swayed by his grandson's enthusiasm and agreed to fund the venture. The vice president, ecstatic, shared his plans with the CFO, who, upon hearing about the Teokbokki restaurant, had a devious idea: use Chianri Mart as a test kitchen. The food industry was risky, and if anything went wrong, the supermarket would take the fall. The vice president was thrilled. The CFO was a genius. With the business plan in place, all that remained was product development, which the vice president decided to handle himself. Back at the supermarket, Seok-gu proposed a Halloween event. Bok Dong, seeing another opportunity for disaster, readily agreed, putting Seok-gu in charge. Bok Dong then secretly messaged the staff, instructing them to wear Halloween costumes, with a Korean twist. Only Seok-gu didn't get the memo. The next day, the dapper Seok-gu, dressed as a vampire, arrived at the supermarket, ready for Halloween. He was met by 2 employees dressed as traditional Korean ghosts, scaring them half to death. He criticized their costumes, which looked more like horror movies than Halloween. Things only got weirder. Downstairs, he encountered a faceless egg greeting customer. Then came employees dressed as angels and demons. But the grand finale was Bok Dong, dressed not as the Grim Reaper, as one might expect, but as a mythical Korean bird god, complete with elaborate makeup and headdress. Seok-gu was speechless, but the Halloween atmosphere was undeniably festive. Customers and children were having a blast. Seok-gu, once again, had to admit Bok Dong's bizarre ideas somehow worked. Meanwhile, the vice president had perfected his Teokbokki recipe. He eagerly offered the CFO the first taste. The CFO, unsuspecting, took a bite. But the moment it touched his tongue, the CFO convulsed. The sheer spiciness of the Teokbokki sent shivers down his spine. Maintaining a brave face, he choked it down, giving the vice president a thumbs up. With the Teokbokki ready, the CFO approached Bok Dong, proposing they sell it at Chianri Mart. Bok Dong, delighted at this opportunity for disaster, readily agreed. However, his uncharacteristic enthusiasm made the CFO uneasy. He suspected a trap. Seeing Bok Dong's sinister grin, he felt a growing sense of dread. Bok Dong offered the Teokbokki to his staff for a taste test. The gangster took a bite and immediately regretted it. He let out a wail of pure agony, unable to speak. Intrigued, glasses and curly hair also tried it. They too succumbed to the overwhelming spiciness. Collapsing on the floor, everyone watched in bewildered horror. This Teokbokki was a weapon of mass destruction. A curious mind ran reach for a piece, but Seok-gu stopped her, warning her that it wasn't fit for human consumption. He vehemently opposed selling it, fearing disastrous consequences. Bok Dong argued that everyone had different tastes. He pointed to the Bibaya tribe, who were enjoying the Teokbokki. Seok-gu looked over at the tribesmen, who were sweating profusely and unable to speak, and decided not to argue. The Teokbokki went on sale, with the chairman himself attending the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Despite the CFO's warnings, the chairman decided to buy a piece. He didn't last 2 seconds before passing out from the intense heat. The vice president, seeing his grandfather collapse, assumed it was from sheer delight at the deliciousness of his creation. They rushed the chairman to the hospital. On the way, the chairman regained consciousness, ripped off his oxygen mask, and ordered them to stop the car. A group of local Teokbokki vendors had gathered outside Chianri to protest the interview showing Teokbokki, Dama's stock price plummeted. Furious, the chairman summoned the vice president.
ano.
The vice president, CFO, and Bokdong. He blamed them for not researching the market and demanded one of them take responsibility and resign. Just then, the secretary rushed in and turned on the TV. Parliamentary hearing was underway.
Naabi ulan.
Holding a $700 billion
Maragasa ang ulan eh.
for Qianling Wang. The chairman and his team were stunned. Only Bokdong remained calm. It was CFO's doing. Anticipating controversy and potential accusations of monopolizing the Tiakbaki market, he devised a backup plan. Partner with local Tiakbaki vendors. Qianling and Martin fund and renovate their stalls and supply
Thank you sa
ingredients.
nag-like.
And in return, the village would
Relax
sell
pala
their
tayo.
unique Tiakbaki
Kapansin.
creations under the Qianling Mart brand. It was a win-win. The small businesses gained financial security and
Lakas, mas lalo
powerful
lumakas ang ulan.
while the supermarket avoided accusations of anti-competitive practices. The government, impressed by this collaboration, offered the bailout. The chairman and vice president were ecstatic. The CFO was furious. Bokdong had supported CFO,
Yun na oras mo, Ahmad.
wanting to showcase his talent and recommend him to the chairman. News of a small business bailout made headlines, putting Qianling Mart back in the spotlight. The in-store Tiakbaki stalls became a social media sensation, with long lines of people eager to try the fiery dish.
Panawa daw.
Sales soared again. Throughout this, Maulan and the sub-crew had been working closely together, coordinating with the vendors. They'd grown closer, and Maulan was impressed by Gu's ingenuity. She invited him for a drink after work. Gu, however, had a low tolerance for alcohol and was quickly intoxicated. Maulan had to take him home. Thanks to her daily revolving door workouts, she was able to carry him without much difficulty.
Ulo ka.
As she was leaving, she saw a troubled look on Gu's face and disdained to comfort her. They talked, and eventually, they both fell asleep. With the supermarket's continued success, Bokdong was back to scheming. One day, he saw a bakery offering a 60% discount to students taking the college entrance exam. This gave him an idea. He proposed a student discount at Qianling Mart. Gu, sensitive about his exam failures, hadn't
Shout
suggested
out
this
sa atin
himself.
dyan.
The exam was
Maulan
over.
pa rin.
Wasn't it too
Lakas
late
ng
for
ulan
a
ng-
student promotion? Bokdong
Lakas
believed
ng ulan
it
din
was
sa
never
amin,
too late to
sa
help
Madrid
struggling
Dios.
students. He
Ulan
decided to
tigil.
hire 100
Ang ulan,
part-time
ulan
student
tigil.
workers, paying them 30% above market rate. It would be valuable work experience, he reasoned. Gu thought he lost his mind. The supermarket couldn't afford this. They didn't need 100 extra employees. With the increased wages, they'd lose millions every day, even with increased sales. Hearing the projected losses, Bokdong beamed. This was exactly what he wanted. The next day, Gu walked out of his office and into a scene of utter chaos. A small army of students stood in formation, with the gangsters now acting as a drill sergeant, barking orders and teaching them supermarket etiquette. It was opening time. Customers were greeted with personalized shopping assistants, practically being waited on hand and foot. It was less like shopping and more like a royal procession. A distraught Gu confronted Bokdong. Wasn't the employee supposed to be king? Bokdong, realizing his mistake, quickly reassigned the students to a mountainside cabbage patch. Gu stared at the field of green, dotted with students in red uniforms, and nearly had a heart attack. Passers-by, impressed by the vibrant cabbage field, inquired about buying some. Gu, seeing a sales opportunity, started to take orders. Bokdong, however, was not about to let his money-losing cabbage scheme be profitable. He yelled that the cabbage wasn't for sale. Gu snapped. He grabbed the loudspeaker and, risking his job, overrode Bokdong, instructing the student workers to sell the cabbage. Bokdong's elaborate plan to waste money on cabbages had failed. He locked himself in his office, defeated. Why was it so hard to bankrupt the supermarket? Suddenly, the security system blared. 2 customers flagged as highly disruptive, level 10 and level 12 threat levels, were heading for the manager's office. The staff braced themselves. Just as everyone panicked, Bokdong burst through the door. Bokdong, wielding a staff, sent the disruptive customers packing with a few well-chosen words. But his anger wasn't directed at the customers. It was at Gu for interfering with his cabbage scheme. Gu received a stern lecture, and Bokdong regained control of the supermarket. His resolve to bankrupt the store remained unshaken. He decided to reward a top-performing employee. Gu, finally hearing a sensible idea, was on board. It would motivate the staff and boost morale. He suggested gift certificates, but Bokdong, naturally, bought a car with the supermarket's funds. The staff, eyes gleaming, worked with renewed vigor, eager to win the prize. When the time came to choose the winner, they gathered around the security monitors to see who had worked the hardest. To their shock, a ghostly figure appeared on the screens, flitting through the aisles, performing various tasks. The little girl recognized her deceased father. Even in death, he was helping his daughter, working diligently in the supermarket. It seemed paying him a salary, wasn't entirely
Ang
pointless.
bata pa
They
nanalo.
decided to give the car to
Oo.
the little girl. She
Kaya
in
mga kasi
turn
iba pa
offered
nagtulong
to share it
sila.
with the entire staff, as they were all family. Everyone was deeply touched by her generosity. Meanwhile, the CFO, growing increasingly anxious about the supermarket's success, summoned Mai Ran to report on Bok Dong. Mai Ran, now firmly on Bok Dong's side, had nothing but praise for him. The CFO realized he'd lost his inside
Gusto na
winner.
pabagsakan.
He turned to his trusted ally,
Okay,
department
nangyari
head
pero
clerk, ordering him to
iyagisi
infiltrate the supermarket and
napakatalino
find
nga
her, Bok Dong, and his team.
assistant pero
The
nagkamali
next day,
siya kay itong
department head
assistant
clerk
noon.
arrived at Chiang Mars.
Gusto
He
niya
immediately took
itong
issue with the
manager
riot
nila dira
squad,
kaya
who were exercising during their breaks.
kaya iya
He
gibiyanan
berated
sila.
them.
Pero
They'd already completed their work for the day, leaving him with no grounds for complaint. Humiliated, Department Head Park felt his mission was off to a rocky start. He stormed into the office and demanded employee records. Seok Gu, however, couldn't produce them. Bok Dong's unconventional hiring practices and Seifu's subsequent forgetfulness meant the records were non-existent. All he had were blank sheets of paper. Department Head Park immediately sensed an opportunity. Bok Dong's haphazard hiring was a clear violation of company policy. He questioned the employees, discovering a motley crew of ex-cons, long-term unemployed, and people with no supermarket experience. He felt this was a grave injustice.
Tubig pa sa
He
kanang
decided to
harapan namin.
administer a recruitment test, demanding a score of 900 or higher, or they'd be fired. Seok Gu, overhearing this, rushed to inform Bok Dong.
Pantigil.
While technically following company
Ked, gwa,
rules,
ked,
Department
gwa.
Head Park's actions threatened the supermarket and its unique workforce.
diba?
He urged Bok Dong to intervene.
Dragon dito
He didn't want
sa
anyone fired, nor did he want the
kamukha ni mo
supermarket
tong
to
dragon sa
suffer.
China.
Curly hair and glasses, summoned for questioning,
Manay ang ulan.
frantically started studying English. They were distraught but determined to try.
Diba?
Miran, seeing their distress, asked what was wrong. Learning about the test, she offered to help. They knew their chances were slim, especially after learning about Miran's perfect
Ito ka sa kusina, sa kusina, sa kusina.
Meanwhile, the department head clerk continued his investigation. He discovered the library was managed by a third grader and demanded CO2 fire her immediately, threatening to report the supermarket for child labor. Just then, Bok Dong appeared. He defended the girl and declared himself responsible for all hiring decisions. Department head clerk secretly reported to the
Pwede ang ulan ah.
Unbeknownst to him, Bok Dong had been eavesdropping. Realizing department head clerk was the CFO's spy, he dragged him into a dark room. If diplomacy failed, Bok Dong resorted to intimidation. He cornered department head clerk, unleashing a torrent of verbal abuse, sending the terrified man scrambling out of the office. Department head clerk, eager to escape, sped out of the parking lot, nearly hitting the gangster, who was staging an elaborate attack. He leaped onto the car, fake blood, tomato juice gushing from his nose. Department head clerk rushed out to check on him, only to find the gangster seemingly lifeless. As he reached for his phone to call the police, the Levite tribe surrounded him, accusing him of being the perpetrator. Department head clerk, horrified, fled the scene. He'd come to investigate and was now implicated in a possible hit and run. As soon as he left, the gangster sprang to his feet, the other supermarket employees emerging from their hiding spots. It had all been a ruse. They celebrated their successful expulsion of the spy. Seok Gu, observing this, gained a newfound respect for his eccentric colleagues. Department head clerk, shaken, submitted his resignation to the CFO,
Nag-resign siya.
vowing never
Okay,
to
handok
return
man
to
siya
Chiang
kay
anymore.
akala
The
niya
CFO
nakita
was
nila niya
furious.
ito yake.
How could his team be so incompetent? Meanwhile, a rival supermarket sent an employee to observe Chiang Mart's operations. The man, radiating an aura of intense sadness, stood motionless in the grocery aisle, his gloomy presence repelling customers and staff. He ran and the gangster tried to reason with him, but he quickly reduced him to tears. Bok Dong decided to intervene. After a brief, intense staring contest, he whispered something in the man's ear. The man then went to the CFO's office and started selling groceries. His unsettling demeanor unnerved the CFO. He ordered the department head Park to remove him, but even Park was too
Meow.
intimidated to approach. The man then turned his attention to the CFO's prized tree
Ano na eh.
tree.
Mga
Under
panahon.
his intense gaze, the tree withered and died, seemingly mirroring the man's despair. The CFO wept over his lost tree. That evening, Miran and Seok-gu had dinner together. Miran was still upset by her encounter with the sad man. Seok-gu comforted her, deepening her feelings for him. While eating, they spotted the CFO through the window, walking with a beautiful young woman. They were holding hands, looking intimate. Seok-gu, excited, snapped a picture. The next day, the woman appeared at the supermarket. Seok-gu, however, hadn't seen her face clearly the night before and didn't recognize her. They learned she was a new intern from headquarters, and, coincidentally, a former classmate of Seok-gu's. She greeted Seok-gu warmly, calling him Appa, older brother, and also seemed to know Bok Dong. It turned out the intern, Jina, was the CFO's daughter, and her internship at Chianrima Mart was a secret from her father. The CFO, upon learning this, was apoplectic. Gina, dressed in her supermarket uniform, charmed the staff with her sweet and innocent demeanor. She quickly became one of the team. That afternoon, Seok-gu called a meeting to discuss the chairman's autobiography, asking everyone to write a review. No one was enthusiastic. Bak Dong, however, had a game to play, a raffle to determine who would handle the company's end-of-year party planning. Everyone eagerly drew lots. The cashier drew a thanks for participating. So did everyone else, until the gangster, who proudly displayed his winning ticket. The grand prize, it turned out, was the entire end-of-year planning responsibility. The room fell silent. The gangster was bewildered. Seok-gu protested, arguing that such an important event couldn't be entrusted to someone so inexperienced. Bak Dong, however, had anticipated this. He pulled out the chairman's autobiography, which emphasized trusting one's subordinates and delegating responsibility. Seok-gu was speechless. The gangster was now in charge of the party. He paced in his oversized chair, unsure what to do. The cashier suggested he simply do what he wanted to do. Inspired, the gangster approached Gina, asking her to be the face of the supermarket and design a poster for him. Gina agreed on one condition: Seok-gu had to be on the poster too. They approached Seok-gu, who nearly choked on his drink when he learned he had to be a model. Gina's gentle persuasion eventually won him over. He'd do anything for the supermarket. Mi Ran, however, was suspicious. Why was the CFO's daughter suddenly working at their rival supermarket? She sensed something was amiss. Gina's true motive, however, was to escape her father's shadow. She was tired of being the CFO's daughter, of people assuming she'd only gotten her position through nepotism. That night, the CFO, worried about his daughter, followed Bak Dong. Bak Dong caught him, and they ended up at a restaurant they frequented in their younger days. The restaurant had changed hands. The food wasn't the same, but their friendship, despite their corporate rivalry, endured. The next
Ang oras na para magsama-sama ang
Ever-ready.
pamilya. Ang ever-ready super heavy duty ay may trusted
Hindi
quality
na mga
sa
Pilipino.
pesyong abot kaya.
Mga Indian naman na.
Sabi ko tanggap na ako dito.
The next day, Seok-gu arrived at the supermarket to find his and Gina's promotional posters plastered everywhere. He rushed inside, only to find the store transformed into a disco. The gangster, dressed as a bartender, greeted customers at the door. Upstairs, Bak Dong was Jing, while the Baya tribe danced enthusiastically below. Seok-gu felt like the only sane person left. He sat on the floor defeated. After work, Gina invited Seok-gu to dinner. He was flustered by her sudden attention. Mi Ran witnessed this exchange, but walked away without a word. Seok-gu, however, declined Gina's invitation and went home to eat ramen alone. Gina's internship ended, and she returned to her father's office with a theory. The CFO kept losing to Bak Dong because of Seok-gu. They were a powerful duo. To defeat Bak Dong, they had to separate them. The CFO seemed intrigued. Meanwhile, Bak Dong felt a sense of unease. He slept at the office, waking up in a foul mood. He received a call from Mr. Kim, his former subordinate, and the first person he fired. They agreed to meet at a park. Seok-gu, fearing for Bak Dong's safety, followed him, along with the gangster. They watched as Bak Dong and Mr. Kim reminisced, seemingly without animosity. The gangster relaxed, but Seok-gu remained vigilant. During their conversation, Bak Dong learned about the hardships Mr. Kim had faced after being fired. He pretended to be cheerful, but he revealed that this would be the last time he'd see Bak Dong. Sensing something was wrong, Bak Dong stopped Mr. Kim as he was leaving. He noticed something bulky in Mr. Kim's pocket and pulled it out. It was Mr. Kim's old employee awards and certificates. Bak Dong was confused. Mr. Kim then confessed. After being fired, he'd opened a fried chicken restaurant, which had failed, leaving him with crippling debt. He was at the end of his rope and had planned to jump into the sea. Bak Dong, seeing his friend and former subordinate in such despair, apologized profusely. He'd been forced to fire Mr. Kim, a scapegoat for the chairman. He felt helpless and ashamed. Just then, an elderly man approached, offering words of comfort. Bak Dong initially mistook him for a ghost, but then realized it was a part-time worker he'd hired. The man had been a neighborhood security guard, unjustly fired after a dispute with residents. Bak Dong, seeing his potential for disrupting the supermarket, had hired him. The elderly man, overhearing their conversation, empathized with Mr. Kim's despair. He too had contemplated suicide at 16, born into poverty with no prospects. He changed his mind, resolving to live until he fulfilled his dream, which, it turned out, was to go on a date. Mr. Kim, unsure whether to laugh or cry, was moved by the old man's story and abandoned his suicidal thoughts. Chianrima Mart's continued success prompted the Dema Group to send a psychiatrist to assess the employee's mental health. The psychiatrist questioned Bakdong, who insisted he was perfectly fine. The psychiatrist, however, had heard rumors about Bakdong's erratic behavior. He noticed the pen Bakdong had thrown at the chairman's portrait and gently suggested a checkup. Bakdong refused again. The psychiatrist, glancing at Bakdong's notebook, saw it filled with doodles. Bakdong explained that he used to be stressed at headquarters, but now, working at the supermarket, he felt relaxed and happy. He then proceeded to draw more circles on the page. Seeing Bakdong's stubbornness, the psychiatrist gave up. Later, Bakdong discovered a clearance section filled with expired and soon-to-expire products, including his Raymond creation. Seok-gu explained it was his idea, a 95% discount on nearly expired items, displayed prominently to attract bargain hunters and boost sales. Bakdong, initially confused, quickly devised another plan to bankrupt the store. He instructed Seok-gu to expand the clearance section, distribute flyers, add more popular items, and increase the discount. This would attract even more customers. Seok-gu, beaming at the rare praise, failed to see the trap. Back in his office, Bakdong retrieved his battle armor, a leather helmet, full body armor, and a red cape. He emerged, looking like a deranged superhero. Seok-gu, checking inventory, turned to see Bakdong in his full regalia, holding a sign. He handed Seok-gu a flyer. Anyone who caught him would get 70% off their entire purchase, plus a buy one get one deal. Seok-gu's mind reeled. Was Bakdong trying to give away the entire store? This was insane. Just then, a group of customers spotted Bakdong and gave chase. Bakdong, however, was prepared. He dodged their initial attack with a graceful backflip, then performed a series of impressive spins before landing flawlessly. As the customers closed in, he effortlessly scaled a nearby pole. Seok-gu yelled that he wasn't supposed to be taunting the customers. Bakdong countered that customers needed to pay their discount. He then executed a perfect 180-degree spin in midair. To the astonishment of everyone, he appeared to briefly fly. Was he a real superhero? That night, two thieves broke into the supermarket. They seemed unfamiliar with the layout, stuffing random items into their bags. Spotting a sign for shopping carts, the thieves quietly entered a room to find one. One of them found a cart, calling his accomplice over to help. But the cart felt strangely soft. Suddenly, an alarm blared. They'd stumbled into the staff break room. The terrified thieves ran, only to be apprehended by the supermarket staff, who tranquilized them with darts. The captured thieves were then enthusiastically disciplined by the Bibaya tribe. However, this vigilante justice landed the entire tribe in jail. Bakdong arrived to find the chief's daughter in tears, explaining that the Bibaya had been arrested. At the police station, the unrepentant Bibaya claimed self-defense. The thieves, however, dramatically exaggerated their injuries, one even sporting a Baya horn glued to his backside. Bakdong was told he had to pay 10 million won per thief for their release. The supermarket couldn't afford it. Bakdong instructed Seok-gu to get the money from the CFO, reminding him of the budget allocation. Seok-gu, having previously offended the CFO, felt this was a suicide mission. Bakdong gave him 3 sealed notes, to be opened only if necessary. Seok-gu approached the CFO, who, as Bakdong predicted, refused to pay. Seok-gu opened the first note. It contained a thinly veiled threat to have the company's accounts audited, alluding to the CFO's past corruption. The CFO, enraged, grabbed Seok-gu, giving him one last chance to choose sides. Bakdong begged him. Seok-gu, seeing the CFO's fury, opened the second note. It read, following the results and following the local fire department. The CFO, though still fuming, calmed down slightly and agreed to release the funds. He then issued a chilling ultimatum. It was either him or Seok-gu at the company. One of them had to go. Seok-gu, shocked and hurt, tried to explain, but the CFO mercilessly threw him out. After leaving the office, Seok-gu opened the final note, marveling at Bakdong's foresight. He vowed to keep this last powerful weapon secret, using it only when absolutely necessary. Bakdong, having received the money, went to the police station, paid the thieves compensation, bailed out the Bibaya tribe, and even gave them a gift of tofu, encouraging them to start anew. The grateful Bibaya chief pledged their loyalty to Chianrima Mart, now their true home. Bakdong had given up on bankrupting the supermarket. He tried everything. He let fate decide. The chairman, meanwhile, had heard rumors about the CFO's embezzlement. He hoped his grandson, facing financial penalties, would learn a valuable lesson. However, he returned home to find his grandson playing with blocks, seemingly unfazed. Enraged, he berated the vice president, who finally pushed back, tired of being forced into a role he didn't want. The chairman kicked him out, cutting off his credit card. The vice president ended up living under a bridge. The next day, the chairman arrived at Chianrima Mart. Bok Dong and the staff greeted him. As Bok Dong was about to escort him inside, Seok Gu appeared, performing another handstand. The chairman, amused, praised Seok Gu's ingenuity. The chairman then took Bok Dong to his office. Mi Ran, sensing trouble, watched them closely. The chairman planned to bring Bok Dong back to headquarters and shut down Chianri Mart. Seok Gu, eavesdropping outside the door, overheard this conversation and rushed away. The next day, the staff gathered for Curly Bear's birthday party. Seeing their camaraderie, Bok Dong realized Chianri Mart had become a true family. He decided to protect them, refusing to return to headquarters. That night, he confronted the CFO, demanding he confess to the embezzlement. The CFO, however, was unconcerned. Bok Dong only had copies of the evidence, not the originals. Back home, Seok Gu, remembering the chairman's plan to close the supermarket, retrieved the hidden document, the original evidence of the CFO's embezzlement, meticulously collected during his time at the supermarket. Clever Seok Gu had been holding on to the ultimate trump card, confident that Bok Dong lacked concrete evidence. The CFO turned to leave. Bok Dong, however, smirked, hinting that his evidence was more substantial than the CFO assumed. The next day, Mai Ran invited Seok Gu to lunch. Just then, Seok Gu received a call from the CFO and rushed off. Mai Ran, sensing something amiss, alerted Bok Dong. Bok Dong seemed unconcerned, claiming everyone underestimated Seok Gu, who was far more cunning than he appeared. At the CFO's office, the CFO accused Seok Gu of plotting against him. Seok Gu feigned ignorance. The CFO revealed he knew about the high turnover rate